Ahuya, calling, Praladam, Pralad, Daityayajaka, the priests of the demon Hiranyakashipu, Prashasya, by pacifying, Shlakshnaya, with a very mild, Vacha, voice, Samaprichanta, they questioned, Samabi, by very agreeable words. Translation on Prabhupada by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukula, the place where the Brahmanas taught the boys, the priests of the demons Sanda and Amaka pacified him. With very mild voice and affectionate words, they inquired from him as follows. Sanda and Amaka, the priests of the demons, were eager to know from Prahlad Maharaj who the Vaishnavas were that came to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. Their purpose was to discover the names of these Vaishnavas. In the beginning, they did not threaten the boy, because when threatened, he might not identify the real culprits. Therefore, they very mildly and peacefully inquired as follows. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sharitatanyam no Pristam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakamayam Tatari Svavadantikam Vanchakalpataruptascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verse again. Griham manitamahuya praradam daityajaka prashasya shlakshnaya vacha samaprityanta samabi. When Hiranyakashipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukula, the place where the Brahmanas taught the boys, the priests of the demons Sanda and Amaka pacified him. With very mild voices and affectionate words, they inquired from him as follows. So we can see here that the priests of the demons, Sanda and Amaka, they are trying to get some information by Prahlad Maharaj as to who was the culprit who taught him this Krishna consciousness, because they for sure did not tell him about Krishna consciousness. Their program was something else. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and maybe moksha, but I think the first three, that's the primary thing going on in the materialistic school. So we have the same scenario today, where we live in a completely materialistic society, and when there is teaching of religion, it is only as like almost like the subject of history, like that's something from the old days, that's like how it used to be, and let's read these funny stories from the Bible and like learn something about that, just to keep some cultural heritage. So there's no really like, in school you don't get any practical knowledge about religion, how to know God, how to become self-realized, how to act in harmony with the desires of God. That's not the topic. And same in this society we hear from many years ago when Prahlad Maharaj was in school. So it's the same scenario we got today. And like Narada Muni, he influenced Prahlad Maharaj and taught him Bhakti Yoga and schooled him in self-realization. in spite of Prahlad Maharaj, he was taking birth in this demoniac society, then Narada Muni, by taxing his brain, he found the means how to get into the heads of at least one of the children in the society, and that way, that child Prahlad Maharaj, he was able to influence so many more children in the demonic society, and in that way actually trigger some disturbance in the society of the demons. So it's very much the same thing that we're trying to do. We are trying to influence society with Bhakti Yoga. We're trying to spread the teachings of Krishna as they're told in the Bhagavad Gita, the legacy of Srila Prabhupada and his literary contributions. We're trying to share with this atheistic society that we live in. And we see that when we try to enter the school systems, then, like, of course, they come here because they might have some interest because the subject is like they have a subject of religion, and then when they get to Hinduism, then they say, oh, let's go and visit the Hare Krishnas. But it's very much like for them an academic exercise when they come here. So, but when they do, then we try to give them the real thing, to actually give them as much Agyata Sukriti as they can possibly carry with them home. We give them the holy name, we give them prasadam, we give them Krishna Katha, we give them some basic philosophical understanding. But also we don't have to wait until they come here, because we don't expect the youth of today to come and search out the places of pilgrimage. So we need to bring the places of pilgrimage to them. So how does one do that? How does one bring the place of pilgrimage outside of the place of pilgrimage? That is very nicely stated in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th chapter by Yudhisthira Maharaj. It says, Bhavaknida Bhagavantas Tirtha Puta Swayamvibhu Tirti Kurvanti Tirthani Svantas Dinagadabrita. He's greeting Vidura, who just came back from his travels to the holy places of pilgrimage, and he says, My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified, because you carry in your heart the personality of Godhead. You turn all places into places of pilgrimage. So that is the formula for bringing the temple out of the temple, to carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your heart. So we can aspire for that, and we can practice for that with determination. Because if we carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our hearts, then our preaching will be very potent. Then if there is no impurities blocking, if the mirror of the mind is nicely cleansed, the heart is very pure, then because we are connected to the parampara system, then the power, the mercy, the potency of the parampara can nicely descend onto whatever person we may meet in the street. So, in that way, if we want to become efficient as preachers like Narada Muni and influence the society, then we need to be very keen on nicely executing sadhana bhakti. Just as we also hear in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni, he tells Vyasadeva about his previous life and how he came in contact with the Mahabhagavats, and how he took the Mahaprasadam, he served them, and he was fascinated. He listened to them chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of God, and in that way he made very much advancement. And then we see, as Providence took away his mother, he all of a sudden became very serious about spiritual life. Not all of a sudden, he was already serious, but now Providence facilitated that he no longer had any family obligations, so he could just venture into the world and explore the creation of Krishna and try to practice. And he practiced devotional service very nicely, so he got the darshan of Krishna himself, always a Vishnu. Anyway,
Krishna.
that was Krishna himself. So
anyway, it doesn't matter. He heard the voice.
Yeah, he heard the voice, and he became very serious in his spiritual life. And in that way, he attained the exalted position of the best of the sages of the demigods.
Sorry, but first he saw him, yeah, and then he lost the vision.
Yeah, and then he heard the voice. Yeah, that's how it was. So, in the same way, if we want to become potent as preachers, we should be very keen on nicely executing sadhana bhakti, because then the potency will be there. Also, I heard that Srila Prabhupada, he was once asked by his disciples, how can we increase book distribution? So we know that there's so much, like in book distribution, there's like different aspects of the same jewel. For example, there's the external aspect, how you relate to this person and that person. You need to know how to approach different peoples of different ages, of different backgrounds, of different nationalities. So much material expertise needs to be there. But actually that was not what Srila Prabhupada, he stressed in connection to this question, how do we distribute more books? He said, if you sit down in the morning and you chant your 16 rounds without getting up, then your book distribution will increase. So, in that way, of course, it doesn't just mean just sitting down, but of course, being very attentive and trying to absorb yourself in the holy names, doing the whole Chetodapanamadhyam and purifying the mind, cleansing the heart. And in that way, if we are very strict with ourselves, and if we apply the process with great faith and devotion, then also realization will come. And if we go out on the street and we tell people that, hey, these books, they are so nice. You read just one word, one sentence, your life becomes perfect. It's so amazing. And you can tell them that I've been reading these books for so and so long and they help me so much. And if they can hear the sincerity in your voice, that you really mean it, that you really live and will die for these books, then people, they will take it very seriously. As I heard many times stated by Navina Mira Prabhu, people, they don't know, they don't care how much you know. They want to know that you care. So if they see that how much these books they mean to you, and they can tell for certain that you are a happy person, they will want that, because the spiritual soul is pleasure seeking. So if they see that we have some pleasure here that they don't, then they will also want to get it. And in that way, so if we practice devotional service very sincerely, then the potency will be there. Then we can carry Krishna in our heart, go out in the street, and wherever we may be, whether it's Amma or Nørrebro or Købmagergade or this place or that place, if we are alone or if we are a group or if we are vegetarian Saturday or if it's Harinam party, wherever we may go, that place becomes a place of pilgrimage, and people just by coming in contact with that, they will get so uplifted and they'll be getting such a nice impression. And in that way the movement here in small little Denmark will grow. And yeah, just like Prahlad Maharaj, how he was preaching to his schoolmates, and it had a strong effect because he had so much realization, because he was actually experiencing Krishna at every second. So when he was chanting, it was so ecstatic, and when he was preaching, it was so convincing. And he was not doing some bridge preaching program. He was very direct, talking to the children of the biggest demons in the universe, and he was telling them about the futility of materialistic life, and how it's like a silkworm, and how you want this and that, and then you just like wrap yourself in a cocoon, and you're completely unable to get out, and you become so captivated by the broken language of your children and the affection of your spouse, and he just compares it to a dark well that you cannot get out of. And so in that way, the children of the demons, they were very inspired by Prahlad Maharaj's presentation, because he had that realization. So that's really what we should try to do. We should really try to realize the knowledge, become very, very convinced about it ourselves, and if we become very convinced, then our preaching will act. So, but it can be very hard to practice with determination. I find it in myself so many times that I decide, okay, enough of this spacing out, now I want to be determined. And you might have that like, but how long does it last before the mind again spaces out? Because it's very hard to control the mind. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. But it's so hard to control the mind. Even Arjuna, he is complaining to Krishna. He's saying, this seems very impractical for me, just to control the mind. Krishna, he says, yes, it is indeed difficult. It's not impossible. You can do it with practice and detachment. So, but in order for us to actually practice with determination, then we also need to cultivate knowledge and knowing what is it we're actually doing and what is the benefit that we will eventually reap. What nectar is there in store for us? What are we missing out on? And if we actually start to realize that knowledge, getting a glimpse of the nectar that is there in the holy name, then actually we will come to a point where the mind will be conquered, where it will be like automatically fixed upon the name. It's stated by Rupa Goswami. He says, how is this? The third line, he says, when the holy name of Krishna dances in the courtyard of the heart, all the senses and the mind become stunned in wonder. So in that way, when the holy name is actually dancing in the heart, then it will be easy to control the mind, because it will be very, very sweet. So if something is very sweet, then you want to focus on it. Like, if you have a whole plate of nasty things, but there's one rasagula in the middle, then you don't focus on all the other stuff going on, but you just enjoy the rasagula, you just pick it up and eat it. So in that way, there might be so much disturbance in the material world, but if we can actually find some nectar in the holy name, then the mind will be conquered, the senses, they will be like snakes with broken fangs, they will not be able to do us any harm, and then we can just pour out the mercy, which is not coming from ourselves, but from Krishna and down through the parampara, and we link ourselves very nicely, and then it can just flow through. So, yeah, I think I will end here. So if there is any comments or questions.
I was just thinking about this, like we were saying, how to bring Krishna with us, like in the form of, like we mentioned Vidura as a pure devotee. And at that time, also the books were not written down. They just remembered the whole Bhagavatam by heart. You see on this conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. Muni, like they could just ask questions and then get the answers like that. But we give them books, so like the deities, like the books are not different from Purnitai and Krishna.
Mm.
So in this way we are like carriers of the deities.
Mm.
Because like you were saying, like our mind is maybe, 1,000 times more, so much more difficult to control than Arjuna, who saw Krishna face to face. Yet is so fortunate to have Prabhupada has expanded himself. Prabhupada said that his books are his ecstasies, like the best part of Prabhupada, that we actually carry that with us, so whether we are so ecstatic or not, but if we can just somehow give that.
Yeah, it's stated that for example, Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to bring light to those who are in darkness. In this age of Kali, it's supposed to shed light on this fallen and dark age. So, like, we can feel like when we go out and distribute books, it's like lighting candles, like, and just like the world is very, very dark place in this modern society, but like we can just go around and okay, one more candle, and just try to light up the thing, put the house on fire. That's a very nice point, isn't it? Do you have something?
Yeah, because it's also something to do with this caring you were talking about. And I can see my godbrother, he was in Vrindavan now, maybe in Nanira, you talked about him. And he's like himself. You see him, he's just, he's always with somebody, preaching to somebody, and he's so personal. You can see whatever he say to people. They look at him and it's so nice to see. I saw him several times in the temple room, and he always preached. He always caring about somebody, present them to somebody else, and wonderful, wonderful to see how we can see what preaching is doing. Preaching is, when we have it, also Arjuna was caring about Arjuna. It's the whole Bhagavad Gita, he's caring about him. And then this is so inspiring when we know that what we are giving is very important. You too, you go out every day. You care about people. This is you giving the light, you are turning the light, you said. This is ecstatic. And you bring it back to all of us, isn't it? Yeah, it's so ecstatic. And that's Prabhupada. He's always reading Srimad Bhagavatam. He never stopped.
Yeah, we just want to make it shiny here and love with the sadham, so that when people come, that they really feel like all the students who visit, they always say that I put on some more incense and like this. But they immediately, when they come into, they see Prabhupada, and some they even ask, maybe also ask Christians now to him. He's sitting so quiet. And then one feels like, oh, I'm such a demon, I can't be Prabhupada the way. The smaller students. Because Prabhupada is like still big compared to them, but it is interesting, just this mood in the temple, it's such a teamwork.
Yeah, it is such a teamwork. It's stated that it takes a whole village to bring up just one child. So there's so much teamwork in it, and everything needs to be there. And we should all have this, like at the Javanam, as you said, caring for the people who come, being like tolerant with their like foolishness, and being merciful upon them, and trying to be their friends, and not saying, oh, this is a demon, or oh, this person might come in the temple, and maybe this person will even do better service than me. So we should not allow that. We should try to keep them down, because I want my little special spotlight here. but we should try to like have this embracing mood of Srila Prabhupada. We're like ambassadors of the goodwill of the spiritual world. So, try to cultivate these qualities of the sadhu, which is also very nicely stated by Kapila Muni when he's talking to Devahuti. Also he says, Titikshava karunikam suritam sarvadehinam adyata shantarava shanta sarava sarvabhushana. That the symptoms of a sadhu is that he is tolerant, he is merciful, he is friendly to all living entities, he has no enemies, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. So for example, we see that in Navina Prabhu, when he's running around and wherever he is in the world, he's preaching. We don't know where he is right now, but we can be sure that someone will be influenced today in a positive way by Navina Prabhu, because he has this realization. I listened to a lecture by him the other day where he said when he was a young bhakta and he joined the temple, his service was at one day, I think it was at a preaching program out of the temple, or maybe it was in the temple, but he was distributing prasadam. And he quickly realized that the more prasadam he gave out, the more he himself became happy. So that's how it works. The more you give it, the more you get it. And so we can be then like that mercy and that friendliness, and that's actually in a way selfish. It's intelligent selfishness, because we know that the more we can actually be in a selfless mood, the more happy we will come, because Krishna, he will be happy. And our source of happiness is not the material body. Our source of happiness is Krishna's happiness. And as it is stated also in the Titanya Charitamrita and Adi Lila, there's all this esoteric thing in the beginning where it's stated why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he comes, and it's in order to relish the mood of a devotee. And it's stated that, for example, the gopis, when Krishna he looks at them and they interact, then Krishna he becomes very happy. But the happiness felt by the gopis who are interacting with Krishna, that's 10 million times more. So we are very fortunate that we are not God. That we are just the servants of God, because in that way we can enjoy even more of Him. So everything is very nice. We have ample opportunity to engage in service here in the greater Denmark, and we should take full benefit, because who knows when our time is up and we're like, okay, clock is ringing, we are going back home, back to Godhead, but there's a special nectar here in the material world that you cannot get in the spiritual world, and that is enlightening the conditioned souls in Krishna consciousness. So that you cannot taste in the spiritual world. So we might think, oh, okay, actually I don't really like it here. I'd rather be back home where every step is a dance and every word is a song. But as long as we are here, we should take this opportunity to enjoy the special nectar of trying to assist Srila Prabhupada in delivering the conditioned souls.
I was also thinking about that in the past. We had some of these very famous book distributors today, like Navina Prabhu, and I think that the ones who lost the taste, even after distributing so many books,